Well, hello everybody on this Friday after what's been quite a big week for me, and I don't know about you, but felt like it was. So thank you for joining us for our seminar today, where we have got the very lovely Dr. Ron Thomson speaking on plaintiff civil liability. Oops. I'm just going to mute that. Speaking on plaintiff civil liability, non-SIRA orthopaedic type reports, the optimum form and content for referrers. And this is really to help you make sure that you're getting the best quality report when you're seeking these kinds of things. Now, Dr. Thomson has been a doctor and a specialist for a very long time, even though he doesn't look barely out of his 20s. He has expertise across general practice, orthopaedic trauma, and a number of other areas. And he has been working in the medico-legal space and with us for many, many years. And he is a well-respected expert in his field, as well as being just a nice guy. Anyway, we are very proud to have him on our panel, and we are very grateful that he's made the time to give this talk. May I ask that you keep yourselves muted unless you have a question that you absolutely need to ask because you don't understand something at the time. But what we'll do is we will have a question and answer session at the end where you can ask questions then. So without further ado, Dr. Thomson, off you go.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for that introduction, and hi to everyone listening. I've been doing orthopaedic type medico-legal assessments throughout the whole range of personal injury cases over many decades, and accounting for thousands of these reports. For a long time, I was doing them across the whole spectrum of workers' compensation, CTP claims, and the other sorts of claims known as civil liability claims, which are specifically public liability, occupiers liability, and TPD superannuation claims. Subsequently, I decided to diversify away from workers' comp and CTP claims, owing to the increasingly onerous regulatory requirements of SIRA, and deal exclusively with the civil liability claims, being public liability, occupiers liability, and TPD superannuation claims. After I commenced doing the practice this way, it became increasingly evident to me that there are a number of differences related to these civil liability claims in various forms, not necessarily prominent in providing reports for CTP and workers' compensation claims. In particular, it's possible with civil liability non-SIRA claims to have a much greater emphasis on the whole question of disability rather than impairment, as in SIRA-related claims, where in the SIRA environment, the whole question of disability is expressly prohibited. And this great difference allows a much more comprehensive understanding of the total injury-related adverse effects on civil liability claimants, which is obviously required for the benefit of those types of injured people. It's this differentiation which I think is extremely important and becoming evident when concentrating on those types of claims only. And in particular, it extends to examining such things as activities of daily living, domestic assistance, history of education, training, qualifications, and experience in TPD superannuation claims. And this sort of thing is commonly less understood and comprehended and reported in practices which routinely handle a large number of SIRA-related claims with occasional civil liability claims. In terms of the optimum form and content of letter from the referrer. This is obviously desirable, and the ideal inclusions would be as much hard factual information as possible in the referring letter, including injury dates, injury description, and educational as well as qualifications, experience in occupational patterning, TPD superannuation claims. And it would also assist, given the multiple questions that are now commonly asked, if any questions asked are preferably uncomplicated, unambiguous, and unrepetitious. In terms of documents to be provided, the important ones are all specialist available letters, all available imaging reports, all available operation reports if they're involved, and all hospital discharge summaries if they likewise are in existence. And in this era where there's often provision of multiple documents and huge files, other sourced documents except the ones to which I've referred, generally, eventually, they become really optional rather than essential. So they're the types of things for which one looks in the referring letter from the referrer. Now, in the reverse direction and in my reports, my aim is to present the maximally reliable and equally maximally efficient report going forwards into this claims arena generally, and all of the dynamics which we know exist in this type of arena. And integral to this in the report generation is the essential requirement of a very good interaction with the patient, having regard to his or her personality, disposition, and psychology generally. This is sort of quite important in general professional terms in any case, and can be too often lacking in the generality of medico-legal reports. And it encourages the fullest possible disclosure from the patient to their obvious benefit. And if you depart from that sort of attitude and conduct, then it will in fact be detrimental to the patient. Additional to the above, I would like to advise that I'm always available to referring solicitors at any time by telephone or otherwise for whatever reason at the time. I think this tends to deal with the specifics of the produced orthopaedic medico-legal report, but there is another huge factor to be taken into consideration with these types of cases, and that's the human side. While a lot of these cases are what you might call a simple slip and fall, there are other extremely serious cases with production of horrendous injuries, often followed by multiple surgical operations with bad outcomes because of the severity of the injuries. And these need to have special attention directed to them because in a lot of these very serious cases, the anticipated enjoyable time frame in the future of the life of those people are actually destroyed in a split second. I've seen a number of these cases where everything has been destroyed their future is lost to them entirely. And it not only affects the patient, but the family, and goes further outwards in a ripple effect to other friends and members of the society. This is a section of this type of endeavour which requires obviously much extensive assistance in the context of those cases, and they obviously should be referred to any one or all of psychiatrist, psychologist or neuropsychologist. I think that's all that I can say generally regarding these types of reports and the optimum content of them from referrer to the doctor and in the reverse. I can't think of anything else of any undue significance at the moment, and would ask if anybody has any questions or wants to make any statement or opinions or advices, etc.
Lovely. Hey, thanks so much for that, Ron. That was really quite interesting. Now, got a couple of people who've put a thank you into the chat for this. If anybody would like to ask a question, please unmute yourself and fire away. Okay, now, sometimes when we don't get questions, it's because you've answered everything comprehensively. For those who are asking, will the recording be sent out? Yes, it will in a couple of days, and it will go out with a handout that Dr. Thomson has prepared with information about the things he discussed. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you, Dr. Thomson, is about those public liability and occupiers liability ones. I've always been interested in how those are assessed when it's only the word of the injured person and there's no witnesses. How do you look at those ones?
No different. There's no difference between any of them on my part.
Okay, fair enough.
I take the history, and the history is accepted lock, stock and barrel.
Okay, I've got a question here.
I might add that I find the histories in all of these cases to be quite credible, and there's often an obvious injury. You know, someone falls into a Telstra pit. There's no argument about the history. They are direct injuries to people, as opposed to a lot of histories related to workers' comp and all this sort of business. It's a bit like a motor vehicle accident. Likewise, there was a motor vehicle accident. You know, someone was thrown out of a car. So the credibility and reliability of the history is not really an issue.
Mm-hmm. I've got a question here for you. It says, for voluminous records, are you assisted by a summary or chronology?
Yes, indeed, that would help. Yes, yes.
That would be wonderful. And in fact, for those lawyers listening or case managers listening, I can tell you that one of the bane of our specialists' existence is receiving a massive big lump of paper that is in no way indexed or categorized, and they have to wade through it very frustratingly. So yes, summaries and chronologies are very helpful. Another question here, Dr. Thomson. How much background detail do you like in a letter of instruction, or do you prefer to get the material? Do you prefer that the material speaks for itself?
I don't really need a lot of background because I generally get that out of the claimant myself.
Okay, good point.
As part of the history taking.
Yep.
And,
Okay.
and it's never occurred to me that the failure to get that sort of offer just mentioned adversely affects the event in any case.
Right.
In other words, I'm quite satisfied with my protocol, as I hope I've described it.
Yeah.
And it speaks for itself in terms of the benefits to the patient and the outcomes of various court cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Honed through many years.
Mm.
Well, look, thank you so much. That has been really instructive. I speak not only for myself, but for the others who put positive comments there. Thank you very much for your time. And for everybody, as I said, the recording of this will come to you in a couple of days, along with the attachment that Dr. Thomson has kindly prepared for us. And if any of you would like to book an assessment with Dr. Thomson, you need only contact Mag, admin @medicolegalassessmentsgroup.com.au. Thank you so much and have a great rest of the day and a great weekend.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Goodbye.
Bye, Ron. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.